28, The New World. Janie Levine, age 19, was on her way home from the movies with her boyfriend when she suddenly remembered she had the power to move small objects with her mind. She'd accidentally dumped her bag of hard candies all over the floor of his car, so she spent the next 20 minutes picking them up one by one and putting them back in her bag without ever actually touching them. Her boyfriend never even noticed. Alan Masterson, a 55-year-old plumber, was out walking the dog when he remembered that he could breathe underwater. He leapt the neighborhood's fence and spent the rest of the night in their swimming pool. He might have stayed there longer if it hadn't been for his dog's constant barking. And Michael woke up from the last of his night terrors to find Molly and Eric waiting for him outside his window. Together, the three of them flew to the top of Mount Noble and back again and again. He won every race. The blackout had changed everything. When the lights went out, Nobles Green was the sleepy little village it had always been. But when they came back on, Nobles Green was already the most famous town on earth. Daniel had gambled big and he knew it. They'd always lived in fear of discovery. A small group of supers, say 5 or 6 kids, would find themselves hunted and in danger if people ever learned what they could do. It had been imperative that they keep hidden from the rest of the world, and as Louisa had pointed out, that made them vulnerable. But a town full of supers, young, old, and everything in between, police officers, fire chiefs, teachers, and plumbers. When the newspaper and internet caught wind of that, which they did by sunrise, no government, no corporation, no military, no men in black suits anywhere would have the power to harm them. You couldn't kidnap an entire town. At least that was Daniel's hope. And it wasn't just Nobles Green, though that had the highest concentration by far and was ground zero of what would become known as the blackout event. After that night, supers appeared all over the globe, but each and every one of them could be traced back to that lonely little Pennsylvania town. All of them had spent part of their childhood there. Nobles Green had become home to the world's superheroes. Of course, the scientists showed up. Biologists, archaeologists, psychologists, academics of every stripe came to Nobles Green to study the phenomenon. Some of the super townsfolk even volunteered for their tests, though very little actually came from it. The source of their powers, as well as how they worked, remained a mystery. Now that the shades were gone, Theo and his father let the university continue its archaeological dig, but other than the very impressive cave paintings that Daniel already knew about, nothing interesting was discovered. Herman had been thorough in his own secret excavations, and every bit of meteor rock that could be found had been. The fragments that had been once his pendant were now no more remarkable than simple limestone. Daniel's ring represented the sum of the total of the witch fire meteorite rock that was left on Earth. For now. I've thought about dropping it into the bottom of Tangle Creek, but who's to say it won't wash up again? Daniel was standing in the middle of the tree fort, the newly rebuilt and improved tree fort, complete with a second floor, connected by a climbing ladder, addressing the supers. Standing in a circle, watching him were Eric, Rohan, Molly, Louisa, Rose, Michael, and Simon. Separate from the group, leaning on the rebuilt door, stood Theo. And on the floor in front of them, resting on a flat rock the size of a dinner plate, was the ring. Everyone kept their distance from it, even or perhaps especially Daniel. So that's why I settled on the sledgehammer, said Daniel, gesturing to the heavy mallet in his hands. I'm sure it's perfectly safe to get close enough to destroy it, and you won't have to actually touch it. We don't want to destroy it. I'm sorry, what? Rohan took a step forward and pushed his glasses farther up his nose and studied the ring. Everyone knows how you feel about this, your relationship to this ring, and everyone agrees that it's dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing on the planet, said Daniel. Maybe, or maybe Noble's Green is. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Eric placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. We knew this would be hard for you, which is why we already met in private. We talked it over, and the supers with superpowers, Daniel scanned the faces of his friends. So you had a secret meeting and decided what? I mean, other than to go absolutely crazy? For the record, I didn't vote, offered Theo. Hear us out. For years, there were only a small group of supers, a manageable group. But now, as of last count, there are 203 people in the entire world who possess superpowers, and most of them live right here. Now, it appears that many of them have faded in strength over the years, along with many of their stolen memories, so you are looking at the most powerful super standing right here. And Georgie, he's stronger than Eric. I saw it. Only sometimes. Hopefully it stays that way for a while. Georgie's super strength that he displayed in the battle with the Shroud hadn't returned since, but Daniel knew it was only a matter of time. He was big brother to a powerhouse toddler. And Clay, said Simon. Forgetting about him was the only good part of being Shroud food. And Clay, agreed Rohan. Bud too, although not as obviously powerful, he's still potent. I'll say, said Simon, waving his hand in front of his nose. Molly punched him in the arm. Let him talk. The point is that most of the adults and teenagers out there with powers are weaker than us, but we still don't know what they're going to do with those powers. I heard Janie Levine is shopping around a reality TV show, said Simon. Molly glared at him, but he threw up his hand in protest. Seriously, no joke. Just contributing useful information to the discussion like a useful super should. Daniel took a deep breath. It hadn't been taken long to get sick of Simon all over again. So you guys want to keep this ring around as a weapon? Your own personal contingency plan? No, said Eric. We want you to keep it, and we don't think of it as a weapon. Think of it as insurance. Yeah, said Louisa. We trust you to make the right choice. Only you. Daniel wanted to argue the logic out of this, but the truth was that he'd had some of the same thoughts. It was why he kept the ring in the first place, why he hadn't told anyone about it, and why the very idea of keeping it now made him sick to his stomach. It was all too familiar. Things didn't turn out so well last time, he said. That's because Herman manipulated you, said Rohan. He used his powers to influence you, but his powers are gone. With his pendant destroyed, he's just an old man. He can't hurt us anymore. Daniel wasn't convinced. Herman would always be dangerous, powers or not. Daniel had learned that the hard way, and it was a lesson he wouldn't forget. Take it, said Eric. Hide it. Keep it safe. Hopefully you'll never have to use it. There was still one person who hadn't spoken. Michael, said Daniel. Do you agree with these guys? Michael looked around the room. He'd changed since getting his powers back. He smiled more. He was friendly and warm, and there was still something slightly haunted in his eyes. He'd been through too much to come out of it completely unscratched. I want it smashed into 1,000 pieces and buried in every corner of the earth, said Michael. I want that thing gone, and I don't want to ever talk about it again. Not ever. But, he continued with a look at Molly, being supers means we decide things together and we trust each other. So I trust my friends and I trust you, Daniel. After all, you brought us all back. You're the hero, man. It's your choice. Daniel nodded. My choice. Then, suddenly, and without further discussion, Daniel lifted the sledgehammer with both hands and with a yell brought it down on the ring. The meteorite exploded in a puff of black dust and green light, a flash, then nothing but bits of broken, harmless rock. No one said anything until Daniel spoke up. You guys put all the faith in the world in me, he said, but I don't deserve it. Not if I keep this thing around. If I did that, I'd be keeping hope alive in Herman's withered old heart, and he wouldn't stop, not ever, until he became the shroud again. You're my best friends in the world, and this is how I'll protect you. His friends just watched him, expressionless, all but one. Good call, Daniel, said Theo, smiling. Good call. Daniel nodded at the new kid. No more shrouds, he said. Never again. And that's the end of chapter 28.